Good morning. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. And we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris today. I actually think she's a gift, if we can expose who she is. The left media, just weeks ago, talked about how she was a drag on the ticket, how she was somebody that wasn't likable. Matter of fact, if you looked at the polls and you looked at her likability, it was lower than the senile old man who's decided he's not running. If we just go back a couple of years, she was supposed to do a few different things. The big one being she was the border czar, and you can find that. But now the left is determined to hide that from us. Think about that. She went from somebody they didn't really like, didn't really think was very electable, to she's the greatest thing ever. And they're excited. Well, of course they're excited because at least they have somebody that can speak in full sentences and can actually walk, talk, seems to do great with those. Well, I don't know about talk. Depends on what you think of the meaning of time. Or what you think of yellow school buses, though I think her yellow school bus speech is kind of sweet. And if she was speaking to kindergartners, it would be just fine because everybody loves this yellow school bus. Now, full disclosure, the fact that I, as a white male, am daring to speak about Kamala Harris automatically to the left means that I'm a racist, that I'm anti-woman, and that I'm a bigot. Just off the top. Doesn't matter what I say. If I dare say anything negative, that's the standard. Except, thank goodness, we still live in the United States and there's still free speech and I have the right to articulate ideas. Now, if I was to just take her on personality only, that'd be a problem. Because I don't believe that it should be only personality. Personality is certainly a factor in why you would vote for somebody or not vote for somebody. But more importantly, if I take on her ideas. Well, first of all, I think that she doesn't get much done. Got nothing, zero done on the border. Got nothing done as a senator for my home state, California. When she was Attorney General, one of the things she managed to get done was she incarcerated over 1,500 African-American men on marijuana charges. Not like dealing and I got several pounds, but like I was smoking. Now, I'm not pro marijuana, but I'm not pro alcohol either. I don't see one as particularly worse than the other. And I don't want anybody ever to drink and drive. And I don't partake in either one. But, she pretended when she went on Charlemagne the God, and I just cringed to refer to Charlemagne that way. He is an African-American podcaster on the left. And he asked her about whether she smoked. And she kind of admitted she did. And then said, yeah, while she listened to Snoop Dogg. Now, the reason that's just fake is because if we look at the timeline as to when she was in college, because she specifically said college, and when Snoop Dogg first came on the scene, unless she went back to college like 7 or 8 years later, they don't match. So she was just blowing smoke. That's pretty typical of Kamala Harris. You get a bunch of talk and you don't get anything done. Now, it's not just me saying that. Amanda Seales, she's an African-American woman, very woke, very leftist. And she recently put out a video that said, well, Kamala Harris is all talk. And unless we do something more than just talk, it doesn't matter. Now, I hate to agree with a woke leftist, but I see Kamala Harris as somebody that needs to be exposed as a deep state puppet that, she's pretty hard left, but I don't know that she really holds on to any position. During the debates in 2020, or it might have been technically in 19, but it was for the 2020 race. She ran against Gibran Joe. And she called him a racist. Over and over. And then suddenly Joe was the greatest thing since sliced bread as soon as he went, well, let me share some power with you and call you vice president. Huh. What will she do for power? Clearly, if she was involved at the White House at all, she had to have seen early on that Joe wasn't up for the job, that mentally there are issues, and she covered it up. Isn't that a big issue? I think that's a huge issue. That really bothers me. And then they're all about saying that they're saving democracy, that Trump is Hitler, that he's a white supremacist, that democracy will fail, that fascism will rise, that we'll never have an election again. And as soon as it got exposed that Joe wasn't up to the job, that during the debate, it was pretty clear that there's some issues going on in his head. He's not functioning well. And they've been hiding him in the basement since 19, when he first jumped in. But they decided they'd rather have somebody that they could control, a puppet, than somebody, say, like Bernie Sanders, who I'm not a big fan of Bernie Sanders, but he is a real guy. He identifies a lot of the same problems as Trump. They're both populist. It's just that I think that Bernie Sanders' solutions are profoundly wrong in every way. But it doesn't mean that there isn't that problem. It's just how to go about fixing it. Well, they rigged the system so that Bernie Sanders, who other people won the first 4 primaries in 2020, besides Joe Biden. By the way, Kamala Harris didn't even make it to the first primary, didn't get a single vote because she bailed out because she was at 1% and nobody seemed to like her. We roll forward to this current election, and the Democratic Party, the party of democracy, you see the giant air quotes. For those of you that are on the radio, they are giant air quotes. There was Dean Phillips, and what was the woman's name? Marianne Williamson. And early on, there was RFK before he went, okay. So they changed the rules, as they do, because they don't believe in democracy that they tell you about all the time. And they made it so that if anybody went and campaigned, because they decided they wanted South Carolina to be the first primary, because it protected Joe Biden. Because Jim Clyburn, essentially, he's a senator from South Carolina. He controls a lot of the vote. He's very respected for whatever reason. We don't need to get into that. He has a lot of sway over the voters in that, the Democratic voters in that area. So they wanted that to be first. So they made a rule, and you can find RFK talking about this all over. If you showed up in New Hampshire, which is typically the first primary, Iowa's the first caucus. If you showed up at all, you would be stripped of any delegates that you might have won from that state. Pretty anti-democracy. The Democratic Party also is the only party that has what they call superdelegates. Now, why would you need a superdelegate? A delegate that holds the power of more than one vote. It's so that the party bosses can get together and have enough sway that they can change things. They want to talk about democracy, but let's just look at some facts.
Weird.
See, even my producer has to speak up on that. He couldn't hold his tongue on that. He's like, well, that's wrong. It is just wrong. So the party of slavery, the party that founded the KKK, the party of Jim Crow, the party of redlining, the party of prison or sentencing reform that Joe Biden wrote, that incarcerated African-American men and left them in for sometimes fairly minor drug charges for 20 and 30 and 40 years. There's a balance with that. some people, depending on the crime, can be reformed. I don't want to be soft on crime. I don't want to be thought of as soft on crime. But there are crimes that are very serious that we ignore. For instance, we still don't have Epstein's client list because those people are connected. So there is absolutely kind of a two-tiered justice system. So those that are poor, that lived in inner cities, a large portion of them being people with a darker or a greater amount of melanin in their skin than me, we created laws, and Joe Biden said, he didn't want to integrate his kids into a jungle, when they were dealing with, because he's been around forever, 50-year career politician. Kamla's just younger. She's working on it, but she's a career politician too. They took out one puppet, Joe. They put in a new puppet, Kamala. Now, this will start to be scrubbed again because they believe in democracy. Left-wing outlets, as well as right-wing outlets, referred to Kamala Harris as left of Bernie Sanders, left of Elizabeth Warren, the most left senator while she was in the Senate. And now, places like Axios, that they're leftist and not fair, not honest. They won't give it to you straight. They're beginning to hide that. Oh, no. Or like, it's nuanced and we can't call her the border czar. Well, they called her the border czar, said she was in charge. Well, Kamala supposedly was only in charge of dealing with a few Central American countries.
Root causes.
Yes, and dealing with root causes of that problem. And what'd she do? Well, I would give her an F- because she completely failed. But in addition, she never went to the border. And you can find a interview with her and Lester Holt where he called her out on that. And rather than her go, oh, yeah, I haven't been to the border, she says, well, I haven't been to Europe either. That's my attempt at her hyena cackle. But yeah. So she gets called out there. She's supposed to deal with root causes. But if she's supposed to deal with the border, why did she run from the issue when the issue got bigger? Because Joe invited everybody here. We look at that, not the debate from this round, the one where Joe was exposed as not able to hold it together at all, but the one from 2019 or early 2020. Don't remember exactly when the debate was. I would guess a debate would have to be 2020 against Trump. And he basically said, everybody from the border, everybody that wants to come, our arms are open. Now, part of being a democracy, now I get we're a representative republic. We're a representative republic. We're a representative republic. Never forget that. Is controlling its own borders, that citizens would have the right to vote. But we're inviting people in from all over the world with no vetting. And this is a real problem. So no vetting, meaning they could be a criminal, meaning Venezuela could empty their prisons. By the way, they did. And you'd think that Kamala Harris, if she truly cared about this country, would go, well, wait a minute, I'm in charge of the border. I need to at least speak up about this. I need to at least do something. I need to go to the border and find out. And where was she? She was MIA. Totally missing in action. So her record's being scrubbed. Yes, she was in charge of the border. Maybe it's more nuanced, but the fact that there was a real problem, and rather than try to address the problem, she ran. Get that, folks? She ran. And the fact that I'm daring to talk about her, well, she'll play the victim card, yet she wants to be the first woman. Well, politics is kind of rough. And I don't care whether you're a man or a woman or what your skin color is or whether you're gay or straight. Politics is kind of rough. If people expose real things about you, like your failure to lead when you had the opportunity, Or what about on AI? She got redesignated a couple of years later as in charge of AI and looking into it for Joe Biden. Have you heard her speak about that even once? I listen to the news constantly, left, right. I listen constantly. I've never heard her speak up about it. Oh, wait, maybe that's her meaning of time speech. Maybe that's connected to AI. No, I don't think so, huh? So where are we at with this? Well, because the media has decided now all of a sudden she's okay, she has had some gain in the polls. And her unfavorability moved from like 38% to like 43%. Is that real? Those same people that said, oh man, Joe Biden needs to bail on her, are now saying, wow, she's innovative. She's great. But they always seem to fail to tell me, why is she great? They can't point to policy wins, legislation that she passed when she was senator, things that she's done to affect the Biden administration in a positive way. She's gone out and she's praised the Biden administration's policies, a policy that has created inflation by spending too much money. To be fair, Trump spent too much money. Biden spent too much money. But then, as soon as Trump was out of office, Biden got in place. Biden went, oh, yeah, those Republicans don't know how to spend money. Let me show you how it's done. Let's do a Build Back Better plan. And then he wanted to talk about his success and called it Bidenomics. What happened? Why don't we hear the Biden administration talking about Bidenomics anymore? Because it's a failed policy, because inflation is running rampant, because he did the wrong thing on energy, because he brought in millions of people, invited millions of people in to cross our border illegally. So that has an effect on the job market. That has effect on the resources that hospitals have available. That has an effect on welfare. That has an effect on, frankly, just basic services. There's more garbage. Now we need more food. And those people aren't allowed to work legally. Now, because they came illegally, I don't know that they should be allowed to work legally. But one of the ways to stop this problem is make it a severe penalty for people that hire illegals. Now, with that being said, on the other side of that, if there were people from around the world that had skills that would help this country, that were willing to come the right way, I think we need to fix the system and make it easier for them to get a green card and easier to come work. I'm not unreasonable about this, but I want, if somebody's going to come, I don't want them to be a criminal. We had some real problems with that. What about the New York police officers that got beat up by the little gangsters? And then they released them immediately. What's up with that? Or what about the thug, I think he was Venezuelan, young man, that talked about how to basically steal somebody's home. You find an empty home, you go in, you take it. Really? That's the country we are? There's nothing fair about that, nothing honest about that. That's just might makes right. I think the Democratic Party largely lives in a place of might makes right. And so if we're supposed to bow before this DEI person, diversity, equity, and inclusion person, Kamala Harris is all about seeing color first. If you see color first and then you grade somebody by their color, why, that's exactly what the Ku Klux Klan did. And I'm pretty sure the Klan would be considered racist. So wouldn't that make that DEI concept racist? We're going to go ahead and go to break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. I want to say thank you. Please like, please subscribe, hit the bell notifications, comment, share. You can find us on Twitter, which is now X, a little bit on Instagram, a little bit on Telegram. We're all over Facebook. You can find us on Rumble. Some of the shows go on YouTube. Some of my shows don't, simply because I'm willing to say things that YouTube considers to be bad. I'm proud to say that I'm on Rumble. It's the main place I'm at. Let's go ahead and come back. And we're going to start with the commercial. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. We're going to have a little bit of fun listening to a commercial. Now, this is not out by the Harris campaign, but this illustrates who she is, what she's done, and how she's interacted with the world. So let's go ahead and roll.
I, Kamla Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time, and there is such great significance to the passage of time.
Another trick is trying to sound black. I pretend to celebrate Kwanzaa, and in my speeches, I always do my best Barack Obama impression. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And okay, look, maybe my work addressing the root causes of the border crisis were catastrophic, but my knowledge of international politics is truly shocking.
The United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. It is an alliance that is strong and enduring.
And just remember, when voting this November, it is important to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And by what has been, I mean Joe Biden. If you think the country went to shit over the past 4 years, you ain't seen nothing yet.
So I think that if we approach this with a sense of fun, political ads don't all have to be mean. Now, some people say that's mean spirit. I see that as pointing out, illustrating the absurd things about Kamala Harris. Stating the truth in a way, in her own words. Now, probably AI generated on a lot of that, but I see this as legitimate. How we approach this matters. There is a double standard, even though Democrats can't seem to define what a woman is. There does seem to be a little difference in how men and women communicate. Now, I want equal opportunity, but the truth is men and women are different. So how you approach this somewhat matters. But again, politics is nasty. But it's what is necessary to come to a conclusion as to how we want to interact with the world. What's important. It's where we decide what type of society we're going to be. Culture is kind of downstream and profoundly affects it. So I spend a lot of time trying to affect culture, but most of my time is more directly attempting to get political candidates that I can believe in. Well, I don't know what I can believe in about Kamala Harris. Is there anything? She's rated the most left. When she was Attorney General, she did one thing right. I'll give her this one. She fought against no cash bail. No cash bail is a terrible idea. Now, maybe it should be relative depending on how much money the people have. And poor people, $100 might be enough to keep them so they're not going to run when they're out on bail. And $1 million might be what it takes for somebody with significantly more money. But I think judges should just have discretion. She wanted to keep that. Interestingly enough, though, as soon as the BLM riots started, she founded an organization. So she did do something while vice president that was all about bailing out the BLM by large mansions organization. So the people that got in trouble for rioting, got in trouble for looting, got in trouble for assaulting police officers, she went out of her way to raise money, talked about it many times, you can find this, folks, to get them out of jail immediately. So which side is she on? It's one thing to go, okay, I understand while BLM turned out to be a buy large mansions, steal a bunch of money organization, the idea that we're all supposed to be treated equally and that there is two-tier justice system. Trump's seen that recently. It's true. So are there things that could be improved? Yes. Are all police good? No. I believe the vast majority of police are just trying to do a good job, but they have to deal with the worst element of society. They get to see you when everybody's having a problem. So yes, could we improve policing some? Yes, but the idea is maybe more training. Maybe we could find ways that officers don't get quite so stressed out. So we had better staffing levels so they're not working 30 hours and all of a sudden somebody's in their face. And let's face it, we're all human. Sometimes they have a bad day. They make a bad decision. They don't treat somebody fairly. But with better staffing levels, better training, I believe that most of those problems go away because the vast majority of cops are good people that got in it because they wanted to make a difference, to make their community safer. And they put their lives on the line to do that. So I want to say thank you to all police. Kamala Harris has multiple times. You can find it unless they've scrubbed it because let's face it, you've got a willing left-wing media that publish things about her that they're willing to cover just about anything because she's the greatest thing ever all of a sudden that they're eager to vote for. What are we going to do? Well, we need to spend a bunch of time not focusing on not real issues like, oh, somebody brought up, and I think this is just rumor, but why spend much time talking about whether she's native born? Who cares? I'm not so sure that Barack Obama was. He was president. It's not the fight to have. Talk about where she is on policy. Talk about how she didn't take a stand frequently, how she didn't lead on the border, one of our biggest issues at the time, how she eagerly endorsed Joe Biden's idea that, well, we should get rid of all fossil fuels. Folks, we're nowhere near ready. And the rest of the world, our two big enemies, Russia and China, they're not getting away from oil. They're not even thinking about it. Now they might, China particularly, has found a way to make a profit over our desire for electric cars and solar and wind. So they're producing the stuff, but they're selling it to us at a profit. We're not even making our own green energy. Kamala Harris has been all in on the new Green Deal. All in. So folks, that's what we're facing. And in her own words, she said so. There's not a maybe on this. So is she a cackling fiend, a girl boss, or a victim? Which one is it? Because she plays each one. If you dare criticize her, she's a victim. When she's out speaking, she's a girl boss. If she's questioned in anything that makes her slightly uncomfortable, she's a cackling fiend. She's all of the above. Well, I don't know that you get to be a victim and at the same time say, I'm in charge. That doesn't sound like leadership. And I think at a very basic level, how can you be both a leader and a victim? Doesn't make any sense. She's rich. She's successful. She's a pretty successful politician, though. I question how she got some of her advantages early on. You know, she was Montel Williams' side girlfriend, not even full girlfriend, second girlfriend.
She was Indian first.
Well, yeah, she was an Indian before she was an African American. Well, she was Indian and Jamaican, but when you mix the two, that automatically becomes an African American if it's to your political advantage. Don't you understand the math there? Yeah, so it's just crazy. So again, I've dared to question her. That means I'm a racist. I'm a misogynist. I'm part of the patriarchy that dares question her. Yet, wouldn't she be the second most powerful position in the United States? So who is it that's keeping her down? Who is it that she's railing against? Because it's not always Trump, though, you know, everything could be blamed on Trump or climate change, whichever one's more convenient. Ideally, you blame it on both, and you blame Trump's policies as the reason for more climate change, but it doesn't always work that way. So yeah, cackler in chief. I think that's one of my favorite ones, the cackler in chief. So we're moving our way towards what's going to happen. Looks like she's going to be the nominee. She and other sources are agreeing that she has gotten enough votes that they will go ahead and have a virtual convention before the Chicago convention to save democracy by ignoring democracy and installing somebody who never got one vote when she ran, never got one vote this round, but Joe's fine. Now, I'd have less problem with this if Joe stepped down because of a dementia issue that, say, just came up. But clearly, she's been hiding this dementia issue. She's got to know. When you hear rumors from inside the White House, her staff and Joe's staff don't like each other. She doesn't like Joe. But clearly, Joe's been paid off somehow so that he endorsed her. Or maybe he was pissed that he was pushed out. Not sure. Because look how long it took for Obama to go ahead and endorse.
Well, Joe told Obama to.
Can they hear you? Yes. So Joe absolutely spoke to Barack Obama, though I think that Joe was in the third. He's part of the third presidency.
Yeah. What did Obama tried to threaten Joe with 25th Amendment?
Agreed.
And reports, people that are in the know, said Joe told him the famous F word to, and because they didn't want Kamala. And so Kamala was Joe's idea, and Obama did not want. That's why that delay happened. He was mad that Joe defied him.
Well, you know, most presidents, once they're done, they find some other project and they move on. And we didn't see that happen.
Yeah, Joe's a project.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Obama stayed. He bought a mansion right near D.C. And as soon as he was done being president, he talked about how he'd like to have a third term as long as he didn't have to be the figurehead and he could stay in his pajamas. Huh.
Right? There's a movie like that too, kind of.
Yeah, there is. Well, I think this Chicago event in August, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee convention, expect protests. There are a whole lot of, particularly African American, but inner city people that are pissed because all the poor areas have been ignored until it's time to vote. And then particularly African Americans, oh, well, you exist again and we're going to promise you some stuff. And then as soon as they vote, what happens? They cease to exist to the Democratic Party.
And in the contrast, the Trump went to a lot of places that other Republicans were never have gone for many cycles. Mm-hmm. And a lot of famous local preachers and leaders have really endorsed him and says, we're so happy that you come. And he's willing to listen.
Mm-hmm. So well, it looks like Trump is going to get somewhere around 20% of black men. It's much more questionable how many or what percentage of black women. Now, we still got a lot of time, but that would be historic numbers. And if he actually got 20% of the African-American vote, not just black men, and with young black men under 35 and younger, he's looking at more like 30%. That would change the entire election.
And the left the media is not happy about any of this. Mm-hmm. So that's why they really had a huge 180, and they made themselves dizzy switching that fast over to Kamala. She's like Obama 2.0. They're saying what?
And no, it would be 3.0.
Oh, 3.0
because his third presidency if he gets that one.
Yeah, so it's Kamala. I love what you're talking about here because she's been ordained already. And she did not win one primary vote. If I may, Elon Musk has reposted this, and because Kamala Harris posted this on Twitter. The United States stands with the people of Venezuela who expressed the voice in today's historic presidential election. The will of the Venezuelan people must be respected. Despite the many challenges, we continue to work toward a more democratic, prosperous, and secure future for the people of Venezuela. The contrast, he's just saying, I think the risk is very real. Here on YouTube, we can't say that, but elections are very fair.
Well,
here in America,
Dominion's machines run everything in Venezuela. They went from the third most prosperous country in the Western Hemisphere, meaning Canada and the United States were more prosperous. And that was it. They were a jumping economy. And then Hugo Chavez, followed by Maduro, took over. Or do I have those backwards? I think it's Hugo Chavez was first. Chavez died. Now it's Maduro. And they became a socialist country.
Wow.
And everything fell apart. And they want to talk about how they're still a democracy. But if you dare disagree with the government, meaning whether you're the opposition party or you're just somebody out there. There's been lots of documented cases of people being beaten in the streets.
Yes.
By government officials. There's been documented cases of the opposition party in the House, in the chamber, being beaten by the majority socialist thug party. And Kamala standing strongly with the socialist thug party, or almost as if they're communists and they care about power, not about democracy.
I saw that. Yesterday about this election, the president, I guess, ordered the military or the police to block the entry of the people voting because he knew of the opposition party because the turnout just was overwhelming. And some of the police were actually taking off their uniform in solidarity with the protesters because it was not a fair thing.
Yeah.
But it was fair. Disclaimer for YouTube, it was a fair election. We can't question it.
Well, we'd be crazy to question it.
No, we can't.
We can't let things like evidence lead us anywhere. We must follow the narrative that the deep state tells us.
Do not believe your lying eyes, they say. So,
yeah, it's a crazy world. We're going to go ahead and take our last break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. I really believe that Kamala Harris is a hope for us because they gave us that we went from an incompetent candidate that was highly amusing with what he said to an incompetent candidate who's highly amusing with what she says. All we have to do is expose it. So I'm hopeful about this coming election. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. And I am talking today about the great hope of the Republican Party. And that hope is coming, from my perspective, from the Democratic Party. We have somebody that I see as a cackling fool that's a stuffed shirt that really will do whatever the next woke thing is in Kamala Harris. In other words, I don't see her as rooted in principle. I see her as, well, let's wet my finger and see which way the wind is blowing today. Those will be my positions. I won't actually take strong stands. And she's just trying to get through on the fact that she's a woman of color.
This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now. We need you now. Oh, we need you now. One day. Truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
So again, I see the great hope in that the Democrats are going to tell us abortion is on the line, yet it's been moved to the states, and I believe that each state should decide that because the Constitution does not address abortion. So that I expect to hear from more than anything. It will be fun to watch the DNC convention, largely because you're going to see huge protests. I thoroughly believe there are a lot of people that are pissed in the inner cities that are going to show up in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention, and they're going to be yelling and screaming. And the reason they're pissed is because things like in the inner cities, it used to be that you had a park. And now, instead of having a park, you have a homeless shelter set up for illegal immigrants. You've got rec centers that used to be for the community. And you don't anymore. You have housing for illegal immigrants. So every 4 years, they come in, meaning the Democrats, and they promise a whole bunch of things to the people from the inner cities, particularly blacks, but whoever's there. And they say, oh, you have to vote for the Democrats. And particularly the blacks have voted at about 90+% for a long time. And they're finally waking up. They're not the only group that's waking up, though. Hispanics are almost at 50-50. Now, I think that's a good thing because I don't believe that the color of your skin should determine what your politics are. In other words, whoever you are, color is not the most important thing to me, but you're a unique individual, meaning you have a different set of experiences, a different personality, a different set of skills, probably a different level of success, because we're all individuals. So everybody's a little bit different. You should be able to arrive at your own decision, not be pigeonholed as a victim if you're in the wrong group, or as an oppressor if you're in the other group. And that's the lens that the Democrats see everything. Now, it's not only color. It might be whether you're a woman. It might be whether you're a gay or lesbian. It might be whether you're trans. I think ultimately the highest level on that pyramid, like if we were having a woke Olympics and you'd get the most bonus
I like
points.
That. You coined that, yeah. Woke Olympics.
Our friend Matt White talks about this.
Really?
Yes. You should have this conversation
Okay.
with him. At the highest point, you would probably be a black pretend female, and you would have the most power on this pyramid. Well, because
dye your hair green.
Well, yeah, but you would be a woman, except not really a woman. And then you would have the darkest skin color.
Okay. Can they get pregnant? Oh, wait a minute. No, they can't.
Well, Republicans would say that, but everybody else realizes that gender is essentially is fluid, and who knows?
It's hard to keep up. Mine hurts sometimes. This whole cis thing, and then, yeah.
You know, how is it that they're able to call a name like that? Because that is meant to be absolutely insulting. You know that. Look up cis.
Okay, I'm afraid to now.
Yeah, I don't want to say it on the radio. It's absolutely meant to be insulting.
Okay.
Yet that's okay.
I thought it was for sister or something.
No, nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that.
Not my sister.
I see the left is continually overplaying their hand. If we look at France in the Olympics.
Ooh, yeah.
That really bothered me. I don't care that whether they like or don't like Christianity. The fact that they went out of their way to be incredibly rude and disrespectful and basically gave about 1 billion people the finger with how they did the Last Supper scene.
Yeah. They did not read the room in a sense.
Yeah, they didn't read the room. Well, sports should be about meritocracy, meaning let the best person win. It shouldn't be about politics. It should be about individual humans' hard work and rising above. And the woke left wants to involve politics in everything. Like you can't just have a normal life. And that's sad. Folks, I really hope that you begin to share who Obama, well, third term of Obama, meaning Kamala Harris, is. Who she is as a person. What has she accomplished? When you ask people that support her, what has she accomplished? I don't hear anything. I hear crickets. Well, she's a woman of color, and she managed to work her way all the way up that high. Let's go ahead and call it. Thank you for this time. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. Have a great day, folks.